I'm out of here.
Gentlemen, start your engines!
Run, Sandy, run for your life!
88, they just been at it all day long.
Whoa, trouble!
Well, we've made it to episode 3. In turn, we've made it to 2008. A pivotal period in NASCAR history, and, well, world history. Television ratings slid in 2007 from their peaks in 2006. While the numbers weren't horrible, it's still something to think about. The 2007 Daytona 500 saw a 10.1 rating on Fox, while 2006 was an 11.3 rating on NBC. The 2007 season finale at Homestead sat at a 4.2 rating, down from the 2006 finale at a 4.7. It may not be anything to panic about now. The ratings still seem healthy. However, the final quarter of 2007 saw the United States economy begin to decline. By the end of 2008, the US economy will officially enter a recession. While almost every sport would be affected in some way, shape, or form, no sports fan base would be affected as much as NASCAR. The Golden Globe Awards would be cancelled due to ongoing picket threats and boycotts from the Writers Guild strike. A news conference style of show would be aired as a compromise. The New England Patriots would have a perfect 17-0 regular season, only to have their championship hopes derailed by Eli Manning and the New York Giants. In the world of IndyCar racing, Danica Patrick would become the first woman to win in a top-level open-wheel event. Bill O'Reilly would be the subject of a viral video after a blooper from the show Inside Edition would be leaked to the public.
No. We'll do it live! Fuck it!
Undoubtedly, the biggest event of 2008 would be the global financial crisis. Much like the perfect storm of circumstances that led to the 1979 Daytona 500 to be viewed by 16 million people, including a literal snowstorm that trapped much of the East Coast indoors, a different perfect storm would cause the most severe economic crisis since the Great Depression.
The market is not functioning properly. There has been a widespread loss of confidence, and major sectors of America's financial system are at risk of shutting down. And ultimately, our country could experience a long and painful recession. Fellow citizens, we must not let this happen.
Sorry to be such a downer this early in the video. Let's get back to why you clicked on the video in the first place. As we move back in time to the beginning of the year, the declining economy of late 2007 had already started affecting NASCAR heading into 2008. For starters, high diesel fuel prices. While the $4 a gallon gas prices would affect the largely blue-collar fan base of NASCAR tremendously, the price of diesel would affect the teams themselves. Teams use semi-trucks to haul the trailers full of cars and equipment. Semis need diesel. Teams paid more per trip to and from the tracks. Then there's the factor of sponsorship. As the economy grew less and less secure, sponsorship dollars became harder to obtain. With that in mind, the gap between the haves and the have-nots would begin to grow larger in 2008. Yates Racing lost Mars after they moved to Joe Gibbs Racing. They have no major sponsorship for either the 28 or the 38. They'll have to make piecemeal deals if they want any chance of continuing. One team that wouldn't be continuing for 2008 would be the longtime staple of the Cup Series, Morgan McClure Motorsports, who would cease operations before the season began, leaving one less ride open for silly season. To say the moves in the off-season were monumental would be putting it lightly. As far as the rookie class goes, the open wheel invasion picks up where it left off with AJ Allmendinger and Juan Pablo Montoya. Patrick Carpentier, Sam Hornish Jr., and Dario Franchitti would all be joining the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series for 2008. Michael McDowell will be driving for Michael Waltrip Racing, and Regan Smith will drive the 01 for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. The established teams in the field would look a bit different for 2008. Evernham Motorsports would become Gillette Evernham Motorsports, after George Gillette Jr., former Montreal Canadiens and Liverpool FC owner, bought a controlling interest in the team, while DEI's number 8 will be split between Mark Martin and Eric Almirola. Another change will be for Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole, who will be switching manufacturers from Chevrolet to Toyota. The Toyota camp has been looking for their flag bearer for years to come, and they may have found exactly who they were looking for. Kyle Busch would be taking over the 18 in 2008, JGR's longest tenured team. Despite performing well in the Kellogg's number 5 for Hendrick Motorsports, dating back to his rookie season in 2005, and even winning the first race using the new car of tomorrow, Kyle would be a free agent at the end of 2007. After a crash at the All-Star race with his brother Kurt, compiled with attitude issues and outbursts toward the team, Kyle and Hendrick would mutually part ways. His replacement, would be the hottest free agent in NASCAR history.
And so today, it is with great honor to introduce my new boss for 2008, Mr. Rick Hendrick.
After a behind-the-scenes conflict regarding majority ownership shares of DEI, Dale Earnhardt Jr. would announce he had signed a 5-year contract to join Hendrick Motorsports for 2008. After a licensing dispute with his then boss and stepmother, he would not be bringing his trademark number 8 with him to Hendrick Motorsports. Instead, he would use the 88, while 2007 Coca-Cola 600 winner Casey Mears would move from the 25 to the 5. After winning his second consecutive championship in 2007, Jimmie Johnson will be aiming to tie Cale Yarborough's record of 3 straight Cup Series championships, while Jeff Gordon will continue to hunt for his 5th title. The biggest surprise in the championship standings would be 3rd place finisher Clint Bowyer, jumping up 14 spots from his final points position the year prior. I guess we'll just have to wait and see if anyone can take the fight to Jimmie Johnson and Chad Knaus. The Nextel Cup Series will also be a tad different in name for 2008. Title sponsor Sprint Nextel would be eliminating the Nextel name from all of its corporate branding, so we'll have to get used to calling the Cup Series a different name for the 3rd time since 2003, as the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series takes form. Then there's the Car of Tomorrow. After being in use for 16 races in 2007, and slated to have the same usage for 2008, before being used for the entire 2009 season, 80% of NASCAR's Cup Series team owners voted to implement the new car for the entire season a year early, to avoid having to abide by 2 different sets of rules. On the topic of the Car Tomorrow, I wonder what the drivers think about them.
I'm still not a very big fan of these things. I can't stand to drive them. They suck.
Yeah.
Fucking thing sucks!
Ron Hornaday would win his 3rd Craftsman Truck Series title in 2007. Despite a slow start to 2007, Johnny Benson would notch 4 wins in the second half of the season in a rally towards a 3rd place finish in points. While Hornaday and Skinner being the class of the field was a big storyline all season, much attention to the Truck Series will be given for unfortunate reasons. Unfortunately, the Truck Series would be the focal point of NASCAR's substance abuse policy throughout 2007. On May 18th, Bill Davis Racing driver Tyler Walker would be suspended indefinitely after failing a drug test. On July 7th, Red Horse Racing driver Aaron Fike, along with his fiancée and Red Horse Racing crew member Cassie Davidson, would be arrested. After being asked to exit his vehicle, Fike attempted to evade the police. After being stopped and searched, syringes containing brown liquid were found in the vehicle, which Fike would admit to being heroin. Davidson admitted that the substance found was used by both her and Fike. Both would be arrested on charges of possession of heroin and drug paraphernalia. 4 days later, on July 11th, Fike and Davidson were suspended indefinitely by NASCAR, and Red Horse Racing would release both of them from their contracts the same day. In an April 2008 interview with ESPN, Fike, now in rehab and counseling programs, admitted to using heroin for 8 months prior to his arrest, and had been dependent on painkillers for 6 years. His once-a-week usage of heroin had become part of his daily routine, including the days he was racing. Just 7 days before his arrest, Fike had his career best run of 5th at Memphis, admitting to using heroin earlier that day. Fike would go on to say that he hoped his admissions would cause NASCAR to rethink their current reasonable suspicion drug policy and make changes to it. "I just want people to know that I am still alive," Fike said, "and I want to make sure changes get made. If the problems I have had can end up saving some lives and opening the eyes of the people that run racing, then that's not all bad." I guess this part of the story has somewhat of a happy ending. Aaron seems to be doing well for himself in the present day. I suppose it's time for the main focus of the video. The NASCAR Force a habit, I guess. The NASCAR Nationwide Series. With the series having a new title sponsor for 2008, is the term Bushwhacker still suitable? Or should we move on to something else that's a playful take on insurance? Maybe we'll start calling them something like, claim jumpers? No, that's fucking stupid. For the sake of continuity in the series, we'll keep calling them Bushwhackers. And just like the last 2 videos of this series, there will be plenty of them. On the contrary, there's plenty of prospects that have a ton of potential upside this season. Scott Wimmer will be racing most of the season in the RCR 29. Both Dario Franchitti and Brian Clausen will share the Chip Ganassi Racing number 40. Landon Castle will be behind the wheel of the JR Motorsports number 5 for 16 races, with the Bushwhackers filling in when he's not in the seat, one of which being all-time Busch Series wins leader Mark Martin. And Brad Keselowski will be full-time in the 88 for 2008. After Keith Coleman Racing suspended operations in July of 2007, Keselowski was left without a ride. With Ted Musgrave receiving a one-race suspension following an incident with Kelly Byers at Milwaukee, Keselowski would fill in for him the following race at Memphis. Brad would make the most out of his opportunity, qualifying on the pole and leading 62 laps, before getting spun by Travis Kvapil while battling for the lead with 10 laps to go. His efforts would be noticed by none other than Dale Earnhardt Jr., who would give him the opportunity to run 3 Busch races in the 88 and eventually finish out the season. Keselowski will be joined in his full-time efforts by Jason Leffler, still behind the wheel of the number 38 for Braun Racing, while the 32 this season will be pretty much an all-star car for Toyota. JTG Doherty Racing will field 2 full-time entries, for Kelly Byers and Marcus Ambrose. Mike Wallace will be full-time for Germain Racing, and Stephen Wallace will be back in the 66 for Rusty Wallace Inc. But given what has taken place in the last 2 seasons, it's hard to be excited about most of the Busch Series talent. It would take an extremely special prospect to develop any sort of optimism.
We are going to be the best thing since sliced bread.
Logano off the corner. He will win his first ever Hooters Pro Cup race. Oh man, that was the coolest thing I ever did.
This Rookie of the Year also is taking the championship points. Joey, did you ever think you would come into a division and be the champion?
Well, I mean, it definitely was one of our goals this year.
I suspect we're going to see a lot of these in your hands over the course of your career.
Oh, we're going for the win. We ain't got nothing to lose.
How about Joey Logano, 16 years old, out in front of Kevin Harvick. And this youngster putting on a show today.
Given the nickname Sliced Bread by Randy LaJoie, Joey Logano has been labeled the next big thing, all before his 18th birthday. In 2005, Mark Martin would have high praise for the then 15-year-old Logano. Martin would say, quote, "I am high on Joey Logano because I am absolutely 100% sure, without a doubt, that he can be one of the greatest that ever raced in NASCAR. I'm positive. There's no doubt in my mind." Coming off of winning the 2007 Camping World East Series Championship, Logano will make his first Busch Series start at the 14th race of the season at Dover, with everyone eagerly anticipating how he will perform. That covers most of the major storylines heading into 2008. With the Busch Series regulars taking home 3 victories in 2007, I think we're all hoping that they can at least match that total. I guess we'll see. Tony Stewart would become the first driver to win the NASCAR Nationwide Series opener at Daytona from the pole. Brian Clausen would be the lone non-bushwhacker in the top 10, finishing 6th. The following week at the newly renamed Auto Club Speedway, Stewart would go back-to-back, with Stephen Light being the highest finishing regular in 10th. At Las Vegas, it looked like Stewart was going to grab win number 3 until he spun on lap 138. The race would come down to all-time nationwide wins leader Mark Martin, reigning champion Carl Edwards, and Brad Keselowski. This Keselowski fellow is in some pretty elite company up here. As the race is entering its final stages, he's in contention for his first ever win. Can you imagine if he pulled this off? He won't. Martin gets into Edwards and causes both Carl and Brad to spin. Mark would easily hold off his former teammate, Greg Biffle, and return to victory lane. The next race would take the series to Atlanta, where Kyle Busch attempted to make history by becoming the first driver to lead the point standings in all 3 national series. He would, but only for a short time, as a cut tire would end his day early. After a late race caution and a green-white checkered, Matt Kenseth would hold off Kevin Harvick for the win. The following race at Bristol would see Clint Bowyer dominate. As the rain came, Bowyer would be declared the winner after a 47-minute rain delay. Well, on to Nashville, I guess. Five races into the season, Kevin Harvick holds a 49-point lead over Clint Bowyer. The top 5 in standings are all Cup drivers. On the plus side for everyone else, Harvick isn't on the entry list for tonight, so everyone will be looking to pounce on the opportunity that sits directly in front of them. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, Kyle Busch qualifies on the pole, a little over 2.5 tenths quicker than second place Mike Bliss. The race's first caution would come out on lap 9 as Brett Rowe oils down the track. The race restarts on lap 22 after a lengthy cleanup, as Busch puts 3 car lengths on second place heading into turn 1. After a caution for debris on lap 61, Bowyer beats Busch out of pit road. Bowyer would lead for a lap after the restart before Busch easily takes the lead back. However, Bowyer isn't letting Busch pull away. On lap 71, Bowyer mirrors Busch's pass from just a few laps earlier and grabs the lead going into turn 3. On lap 100, Busch grabs the lead once again. On lap 122, David Rudiman is first onto pit road for green flag pit stops. 3 laps later, the leaders would all dive in for their pit stops. Scott Wimmer, Kelly Byers, and Brad Keselowski would all lead laps as the field cycles through the pits, with Kyle Busch regaining the lead after the field has finished their stops. With 70 laps to go, a caution for debris would reset the field. The leaders would pit for fresh tires before a restart with 65 laps to go. Kyle Busch, just as he's done multiple times today, gaps the field heading into turn 1. Hey Kyle, I know I'm making this video about how rough this time period was for bushwhacking, because I'm 16 years into the future and, well, I can do that. But deep down, I really want you to win this damn thing. A lot of people don't like you, Kyle, but I'm a fan of yours. And ever since 5-year-old Jesse watched you win your first Cup race at Fontana, I've been an ardent supporter of yours. Heading into this season, you had a lot of doubters. Of course, you have the talent. Hell, you won 7 races last year across Cup, Busch, and trucks. You finished 5th in the chase for the Cup. But you're not in the same position as you were in last year, are you? After the crash at last year's All-Star race with your brother, Kellogg's didn't want you anymore, did they? Then you and Jeff Gordon sat down and discussed how unhappy you were at Hendrick Motorsports. So, Hendrick granted you your wish, and would release you from your contract at season's end. Well, that's fine. No big deal, but Kyle, I gotta ask, do you ever think you might be trying just a tad bit too hard? Hold on. I don't mean to offend you. Just hear me out for a second. After you crashed at Texas last year, you thought your day was over, so you left the track. Your number 5 crew, to their credit, busted their tails to get the car drivable and wanted to gain some points by getting the car back out there. But you had left. So, Dale Earnhardt Jr. finished the race in your car. I'm sure given the situation, you were somewhat understanding at the time. Well then, the All-Star crash happens, and then Kellogg's doesn't want you anymore. And then Dale Jr. replaces you. And then in the chase race at Kansas, when you still have a chance to win your first Cup Series championship, Dale Jr. wrecks you. Damn it, man, he cost you a championship and took your spot at Hendrick. Man, that's gotta be rough. You ever think about that stuff when you're on the track? You know what? I'm sure all this stuff won't matter soon, right? Anyway, you've already proved those doubters wrong this season, haven't you? You've won 2 truck races already, and at Atlanta, you got Toyota their first win in the Cup Series. You're making history, bud. The only series you haven't won in this year is the Nationwide Series. Don't get me wrong, I know it's not from a lack of trying. You finished 2nd at Daytona and Fontana. You started in the back at Vegas and made it to the lead in just 63 laps. Then a cut tire ended your day 40 laps later. The following week at Atlanta, you dominated. You led 153 laps before, once again, you cut a tire. You didn't even get a chance to win last week since you ran a wreck 12 laps in. But today, just like many times you've done this year, you've dominated. We're on lap 162 and you've led 125 of them. You've got the car and you've got the talent. But Kyle, one of the things many people criticize you for is that you can't finish these things out. Remember when I asked you if you ever thought you tried too hard? Listen, I know this is the 3rd time I've brought this up, and I hate to keep harping on it. But do you remember what Mike Joy said at the All-Star race last year? Something like, that boy's got a lot of talent.
If only he can harness it on a weekly basis.
And Kyle, I'm in no position to tell you how to drive. But Kyle, you've got the lead. You can take it easy. In all honesty, you need to take it easy. Because at this point in the race, if it goes green the rest of the way, you and everyone else might not make it to the end on fuel. Just let the race come to you. Kyle, you don't have to try so hard.
Spins! Kyle Busch is in trouble across the infield grass.
Ah, motherfucker. After Kyle Busch spins, it puts Clint Bowyer in prime position to double up on his win last week at Bristol. But take a look at who's sitting in 2nd. Scott Wimmer, who's in his first start in the RCR 29 this season. And for the next 40 laps, Wimmer doesn't let Clint out of his sight. Despite being part of winning the Owners' Championship last season, he went winless. He hasn't been to victory lane since Pikes Peak in 2003. With the race moved to a smaller window on the screen, ESPN runs a feature on Scott, where he flat out says that his goal for 2008 is to win races. And just as those words exit his mouth, he drives around Clint Bowyer and grabs the lead. As the laps tick down, the talk of fuel saving grows louder by both teams and the broadcasters. In the end, Scott Wimmer would save just enough and become the first non-bushwhacker to win in the NASCAR Nationwide Series.
We've only had 3 today. The old record was 5. It's going to be a new race record for speed, and for Scott Wimmer, it's going to be a record day. His first win for Richard Childress Racing. Here he comes to the stripe. New winner at Nashville, Scott Wimmer.
Compared to the previous 2 seasons, the first Busch Series regular to win came at race 16 both years. This year, Wimmer won in just the 6th race of the season. I can't help but wonder if this is a sign of things to come, but then again, I should probably know better than to get my hopes up. Oh, would you look at that? Kyle got his first nationwide win of the year the following week at Texas. I guess that speech I gave him lit a fire underneath him, because not only would he win at Texas, he would also win the race after at Phoenix, and again the race after at Mexico. The following race would be at Talladega, where Tony Stewart would go 2 for 2 in restrictor plate races. The bigger stories of the race included a lap 11 crash that involved Dario Franchitti. After blowing a tire, he spun directly into the path of Larry Gunselman. As a result of the driver's side impact, Franchitti would suffer a fractured left ankle. However, the biggest conversation would be this head-scratching moment involving Kevin LePage, whose spotter must have been taking a piss as he left pit road and merged in front of the entire field heading into turn 1. The following race at Richmond would see Denny Hamlin win, but all eyes would be on Stephen Wallace and Kyle Busch after a last lap incident between the two and the small pit road tussle that followed. Don't worry about it, Kyle. I'm sure tomorrow's Cup race won't be as eventful as tonight.
Oh, he turned it! No! Oh, he turned it! No!
The following week at Darlington would see Tony Stewart win, marking the 4th Nationwide Series victory in a row for Joe Gibbs Racing's number 20. At the series' next race in Charlotte, Kyle Busch would win. During the race's final caution, Brad Keselowski would show his displeasure with the way he was raced by Denny Hamlin. After taking swipes at each other on the track, including team owner Dale Jr. sticking up for his driver, the 88 and the 20 crews would tussle with each other on pit road after the race. The incident would result in 3 crew members of the 88 crew being fined: Tony Eury Sr., Jordan Allen, and Michael Sandlin, with Sandlin also receiving a 1-race suspension. The week after, the series would head to Dover. In its first Nationwide Series start, Joey Logano would qualify 9th and end the race in an impressive 6th place. While Joe Gibbs Racing's newest prospect had an impressive debut, the race would be won by Denny Hamlin in the 18 for JGR, marking Toyota's 8th win in a row. Well, we're here again, and Toyota might get their 9th win in a row today. Joey Logano is sitting on the pole, a whole 10th quicker than Brad Keselowski. As the race goes green, Logano would hold the top spot and clear Keselowski off turn 2. On lap 9, the number 11 of Jason Keller would spin off turn 2, bringing out the race's first caution. After a restart on lap 13, the race would have a long green flag run. On lap 59, 3rd place runner Mike Bliss comes to pit road and begins the cycle of green flag pit stops. Soon, points leader Clint Bowyer would follow suit. As the cycle continues, the 9 of Chase Miller spins getting onto pit road, but a caution wouldn't be thrown. On lap 79, Stephen Wallace would get loose underneath the lap car of Bernie Lamar and collect Marcus Ambrose, bringing out the race's 2nd caution. As the leaders race off pit road, Mike Bliss and David Rudiman both jump 4 spots, while Ambrose's night goes from bad to worse as he loses a wheel. As the broadcast comes back from commercial, we see Brad Keselowski in the lead after staying out. However, it wasn't a strategy call that caused him to stay out.
I was telling you to come with them. I don't know why you didn't. Oh, didn't hear that. You need to pay attention when you're coming around there. When you see the whole damn field spitting, you got to come with them, babe. You can't stay out there. To be honest, I think it's for the best. I think if you can get me off strategy of them, I can beat them. You get me in front of them.
The race would go back under green, but only for 2 laps, as Brad Coleman brings out the yellow. The following restart would end the same way. Coming off of turn 4, a 4-wide stack-up would end with Joey Logano getting the worst of it, tagging the wall in the process. As much as it sucks for Logano, don't worry. he'll get plenty more opportunities to win this season. The following restart would see Keselowski jump out in front and maintain the lead. Eventually, he would open up a good-sized gap to second-place runner Clint Bowyer. During commercial break, the race's fifth caution would wave after a spin off turn 4 by Greg Biffle. The cars that didn't pit earlier would stop for fuel and tires. This would leave the race in the hands of Bowyer as the race restarts. Bowyer would hold steady at the front for 36 laps, until a caution for the 33 of Cale Gale bunches the field up once more. The race would restart with 74 laps to go, before a caution involving the number 22 of Josh Wise. A lap after the next restart, a spin by Bernie Lamar would bring out the 8th caution flag of the night. The race would restart once more. A few laps after, David Rudiman would work his way around David Stremme for second place, and set his sights on Bowyer. Meanwhile, just like the Nashville race earlier in the season, this race could potentially come down to fuel strategy. As the race enters its closing stages, Rudiman has closed the gap to Bowyer. Coming to 50 to go, he makes his move to the inside and takes the lead. With 43 laps remaining, Bobby Hamilton Jr. would bring out the yellow. The race would restart with 39 to go, and after clearing the lap car of Kyle Busch, Rudiman would set sail on the field and open up his lead on Bowyer. With 14 laps to go, Rudiman has a 4-second lead on Bowyer. But there's something I forgot to mention earlier. With 41 laps to go, Brad Keselowski brought the 88 down pit road for fuel and 4 fresh tires, meaning that now, with 14 to go, not only does he have fresher tires than the top two, but he's also good to go on fuel. The same can't be said for Rudiman and Bowyer. Brad uses his fresh tires to his advantage and is running 0.4 a lap quicker than Bowyer. With 12 laps to go, a spin by Brad Teague would bring out a caution and put Keselowski in a prime position to win the race. The race would restart with 8 laps remaining. As the top 3 exit turn 2, they stay nose to tail entering turn 3. Bowyer has to make his move now if he wants any chance of holding off the hard-charging Keselowski. Rudiman washes up entering 3, and Bowyer sticks to the bottom. They make contact in turn 4, allowing Bowyer and Keselowski to get by the 99, as 4th place runner David Stremme enters the mix. Stremme has never won a NASCAR race in any series, and he wants to make a charge to the front as well. In turn 3, he moves Rudiman out of the way, and tries to charge to the front and challenge Bowyer and Keselowski. Coming off of turn 4 heading into 5 to go, Keselowski makes his move on the inside, but Bowyer side drafts him down the front stretch. Brad sails it off into turn 1 and clears Bowyer. With a clean air and fresh tires, Keselowski would drive away from Bowyer and claim his first ever Nationwide Series win.
White flag is waving.
Just like Dale Jr., this young man is a second-generation driver who followed in the footsteps of his famous father, Bob Keselowski, who was also a stock car champ, Bob in ARCA. Of course, Dale Sr. in NASCAR Sprint Cup. Final lap for the youngster from Michigan. Great battle for second spot there. Bowyer trying to hold off David Stremme, but the story up front is the 88 car coming out of turn 4. First-time winner in 2008, Brad Keselowski.
With the regulars sweeping the season at Nashville, it seems like the standalone events are treating us well. And wouldn't you know it, we're heading to another one next week. After qualifying, 5 out of the top 6 qualifiers have never won a Nationwide Series race, and for the second race in a row, Joey Logano wins the pole. Only 3 drivers have won 2 poles in their first 3 starts: Dick Trickle, Harry Gant, and Ryan Newman. As the race goes green, we get a good look of the packed Kentucky grandstands for the 3rd year in a row. Tonight is a record attendance of 73,195. I wonder if this place will get a cup race in the next few years. The drivers don't even get to finish a lap before the caution comes out, for Kenny Wallace limping around the track. The race would restart on lap 5. A lap later, we get a look at Kyle Busch, who after having 0 laps of practice and had Jeremy Clements qualify the car, is already up to 25th after starting 36th. By lap 11, Kyle has now made it up to 16th. The caution would come out for Chase Miller crashing in turn 2. As the race restarts on lap 18, Jason Keller gets the jump on Logano and manages to grab the lead. Keller would lead for 22 laps as Kyle Busch inches his way closer towards the front. After passing Logano for second on lap 39, a lap later he would pass Keller on the outside and take the lead off of turn 2. He would hold the lead until lap 59 as he would come in and begin the cycle of green flag stops. As the pit cycle completes, Kyle Busch has increased his lead from 2.7 seconds before the green flag stops to 6.9 seconds after.
Remember the other night we were talking about the big lead the Lakers had, and the Celtics won. Well, Kyle Busch is playing the role of the Lakers right now.
Well, I don't know.
I don't mean about the losing the lead, but I mean he's got a massive lead before halfway, but you stay with it because you never know what can happen.
That's exactly right.
As we come back from commercial, the field is under caution for debris on the track. The leaders would pit for fuel and tires, with the exception of Scott Wimmer, who only takes fuel, grabbing the lead in the process. As the race restarts, the fresh tires and a rocket ship of a race car is too much for Wimmer to hold off, as Kyle Busch once again makes a pass on the outside to take the lead. Joey Logano would follow through to second place, but would not be able to challenge Kyle for the lead. Hey Kyle, this is kind of looking like the first time we went to Nashville this season. You're far and away the class of the field. I know you gave that one away, but you won 3 in a row after that. I doubt you'll give one away like that again though, right? As the laps tick away, Kyle holds steady at the front with Logano still in second. With 66 laps to go, a caution would come out once again for debris. The caution couldn't have come at a better time as the field were just on the verge of green flag pit stops. As the lap cars are lining up on the inside lane, Carl Edwards, who is 2 laps down, attempts to take his spot in front of Stephen Wallace, who is 1 lap down. While Stephen is warming his tires up for the upcoming restart, he hits the left rear of Carl's car and spins himself out in the process. Not the first time these two have had an incident here. Kyle Busch once again rockets to the lead on the restart. However, with 54 laps to go, Logano takes a play out of Busch's playbook and makes the pass for the lead on the outside in turn 4. This opens the door for a potentially history-making moment. Back in 1999, Casey Atwood won at Milwaukee and became the youngest winner in Nationwide Series history at 18 years, 10 months, and 9 days old. On this night, Joey Logano is only 18 years and 21 days old. But, in order to make history, he'll have to hold off the hottest driver in all of NASCAR this season. With 47 laps remaining, the race goes to commercial. As we come back from break 5 laps later, the 18 has reeled in the 20 and is right in his tire tracks heading into turn 1. ESPN begins to run down the front runners. Logano's in first, Busch is in second. Nashville winner Scott Wimmer is third. 2007 O'Reilly Raceway Park winner Jason Leffler is 4th. David Reagan is 5th, and Mike Wallace is in 6th. And in 7th, we have...
It is Kyle Busch who has crashed off of turn number 2. Can you believe it?
Unbelievable.
For the 5th time this season, Kyle will fail to finish. As the race restarts with 31 laps to go, Logano holds the lead off of turn 2 as Leffler makes a move to the inside of Wimmer for second and completes the pass heading into turn 3. Lap after lap, Joey Logano holds a steady lead over second place. Nobody would come close to sliced bread.
Logano's going to better that by almost 9 full months. He is 18 years, 21 days, and boy, what a Father's Day present he is going to give to Dad, because the 18-year-old in only his 3rd start is going to win a NASCAR Nationwide Series race at Kentucky.
Joey Logano becomes the youngest winner in Nationwide Series history. He also becomes the 8th different winner at Kentucky in 8 races, and the 3rd straight first-time winner at the facility. 2007 Series champion Carl Edwards would end his 36-race winless streak at the Milwaukee Mile, despite missing qualifying and starting in the back. Joey Logano would finish in 2nd place, the only non-bushwhacker in the top 5. Heading into the 18th race of the season, Clint Bowyer holds a 188-point lead over Brad Keselowski. Compared to the previous 2 seasons, the point gap is surprisingly close. Tony Stewart would win at New Hampshire, with Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch finishing 2nd and 3rd. The race would mark the first ever 1-2-3 finish for Toyota in the Nationwide Series. The following race at Daytona on July 4th would be won by Denny Hamlin, marking the 9th win for the Joe Gibbs Racing number 20 so far in 2008. The next race would take us to Chicago, where a win by Kyle Busch would mean that Joe Gibbs Racing has now tied the record of wins by a team in a single season. Last year, Richard Childress Racing scored 13 wins throughout the 2007 season. This year, Joe Gibbs Racing has scored the same number of wins in just 20 races. Carl Edwards would notch win number 2 of the season at Gateway. Then at the following race at O'Reilly Raceway Park, Kyle Busch would earn Joe Gibbs Racing their 14th win of the season and break the record of 13. The following race would take the series to Montreal for the Napa Auto Parts 200 at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. The race would mark the first race in NASCAR history to be ran in the rain, with the cars fitted with rain tires and windshield wipers. The race would be dominated by Marcos Ambrose for the second straight year. However, a speeding penalty on pit road would hand the lead to road course ringer Ron Fellows. Before Ambrose had a chance to regain the lead, the race would be called for rain on lap 48 of 74, giving the win to the Canadian Fellows and Canadian second place finisher Patrick Carpentier. While Fellows isn't a regular, I'll still count this one as a win for the regulars, bringing our win total up to 4 and breaking our previous win total of 3 from last year. For those of you wondering how a win qualifies for our regulars win total, well, he beat the Bushwhackers. That's pretty much it. We head to Watkins Glen for the Zippo 200. Dario Franchitti becomes the first Scottish driver to qualify on the pole for a NASCAR National Series race. As the green flag flies and lap 1 is completed, Franchitti becomes the first Scotsman to lead a lap in a NASCAR race. As the field begins to spread out, Franchitti is holding steady at the front, with reigning two-time Cup Series champion Jimmie Johnson running close behind in second. Although the broadcast didn't catch the incident, we do get to hear Kevin Harvick's message towards Brad Keselowski.
I wonder why.
On lap 12, the first caution of the day would fly after the 0-1 of Wheeler Boys and the 29 of Jeff Burton make contact heading into the final corner. The race off pit road would be won by Ryan Newman. Newman would be restarting 7th after Kyle Busch, Jason Leffler, Max Pappas, Stan Sylvia, Jeff Burton, and Sam Hornish Jr. all stay out. A stack up on the restart would lead to Brad Coleman, Patrick Carpentier, and Mike Bliss having damage. As the camera pans out, we see that Denny Hamlin took the scenic route through turn 1. What the cameras didn't catch in that moment was what was going on directly behind Hamlin. Remember that little message that Harvick said earlier? Well, apparently Brad was well aware that Harvick was behind him on the restart. So much so that he was so focused on Harvick in his mirror, he missed his braking point and ended up spinning Hamlin. As the leaders exit the carousel, the caution would fly for debris. After the drivers involved in the stack-up come down pit road and fix their damage, the race would restart on lap 19. A lap later, Kyle Busch makes his way down pit road. While the cameras are focused on Kyle's pit stop, Stephen Wallace spins out PJ Jones in the final corner. Since Wallace was blocked by Jones trying to get pointed in the right direction, Jones returned the favor in turn 1. As Burton is trying to set up a pass on Leffler, Stan Sylvia crashes in the S's after contact from Mike Bliss and brings out the caution. The remaining drivers that didn't pit during the first caution make their stops on lap 23, handing the lead to Jeff Burton in the process. The race restarts on lap 25, as Jimmie Johnson dives to the inside of second place Ryan Newman. Johnson clears Newman as they head into the S's, allowing him to set his sights on leader Jeff Burton. Heading into turn 6, Johnson gets around Burton and takes the lead. Shortly after, Newman passes Burton for second. The race would then go on its longest green flag run so far, with Johnson maintaining a healthy lead over Newman. On lap 41, the cameras cut to a spinning Sam Hornish Jr. after contact from Marcos Ambrose. Coming through the smoke, Antonio Perez plows into the side of the 12, taking them both out of the race in the process. The majority of the leaders would come onto pit road for fuel and tires, but 10 drivers would stay out, some of whom are pole sitter Dario Franchitti, Ryan Newman, and Marcos Ambrose. Before the restart, we learned that some of the Bushwhackers received penalties on their pit stops. Jimmie Johnson sped on pit road, and Kyle Busch's team had an uncontrolled tire. Ambrose would time the restart well, passing Newman for second in turn 1. With 35 laps remaining, Franchitti comes down pit road with others following suit. The following lap, Ambrose and Newman make their pit stops. Just after they get past the entrance to pit road, debris from Boris Said's car would bring out the 5th caution of the race. The caution would hand the lead to David Reutimann. Unfortunately for him, he hasn't been down pit road since lap 14, so he'll have no choice but to pit during this caution. As the field heads down into turn 1 on the restart, the top 2 in the point standings collide as Carl Edwards makes contact with points leader Clint Bowyer. This allows for Brad Keselowski to now sit second in the point standings. The battle for the lead begins to pick up as the laps tick down, and the talk of fuel mileage grows louder. As the broadcast returns from commercial break, they show a replay of the pass for the lead. Well, the spin for the lead. With 19 to go, Burton tries to get to Busch's back bumper, but he gets to the corner too fast and now has to chase him down all over again. Kyle is pushing hard to stretch his lead, locking up the brakes heading into turn 1. The leaders aren't the only drivers pushing hard either, as the 30 of Stanton Barrett spins the following lap. Heading through the carousel, Burton gets to Kyle's back bumper and moves him out of the way. As the top 2 of Burton and Johnson begin to drive away, third place runner Marcos Ambrose knows that he has to be aggressive if he wants to keep up with the top 2. As the race enters its final 10 laps, the teams of the respective leaders are concerned about fuel mileage. The 29 team starts telling Burton to back off to make it to the end. Johnson took fuel 2 laps after Burton, so there's a chance that Johnson could make it to the finish, albeit a slim one. Ambrose is good to go on fuel. He then begins to drive as hard as he can. He's gained a half a second on the lead within the last 4 laps. Heading down the chute heading into turn 6, it all comes unglued for the top 2.
Jimmie Johnson slowing down quite a bit.
Might not be by choice. He may be running out of fuel right here. He is out of fuel.
We'll get some more in there.
Yep, he is. That tells you right there, these guys are way short on fuel.
29 still under power. Still got good throttle.
Yeah, I'm out. Debris over here.
Okay,
I'm out. I gotta come to you.
The attack went to 0 right there. Either he shut it off or it just quit running.
Now, guys, be ready for him.
So here comes Marcos Ambrose.
There comes Marcus. We told you this could just be his day.
Hey, Marcos Ambrose just took the white flag. The next flag you'll see will be the checker. Will there be no green-white checker here?
Franchitti looking racy, trying to make a move around Harvick. Harvick looks to the inside of Kenseth. Again, that's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Needs to tiptoe here.
I believe I'd just follow him to the checker.
Yeah, there's no reason to pass him. He's got plenty of cushion back there. These guys aren't going to catch him from behind unless Borst just stops.
Kyle Busch trying to reel him in. Turn 10.
Big caution, that's it.
That's it. Race is over. 59 car, Marcos Ambrose.
How about that? Gary Cogswell celebrates on the pit box.
Marcus, way go, guys.
And Marcos Ambrose goes to victory lane for the first time in his career at Watkins Glen.
Ambrose becomes the 3rd Nationwide Series regular to get their first win this season, and the 5th total win for the regulars. The regulars have only had 5 wins from 2006 and 2007 combined. Maybe the tides are turning. Race number 25 would take us to Michigan, which would be won by Carl Edwards. The Bushwhackers would lead 249 out of 250 laps. Brad Keselowski slips back to 3rd in the point standings, as Clint Bowyer sits at the top, 113 points ahead of Edwards. After the race, NASCAR impounded multiple cars. NASCAR would take the cars back to the chassis dyno to see how much horsepower the cars were making. A few weeks prior, NASCAR had given the Toyota teams in the series a different tapered spacer to run, cutting the Toyotas by about 15 horsepower. When NASCAR put the 2 Gibbs cars on the dyno, their readings showed around 12 horsepower less than they should have read. What exactly happened next is a mystery, but one can assume they tried to figure out how or why their readings were inaccurate. One way or another, they made their way to the throttle stop underneath the gas pedal. When the throttle is engaged at 100%, the pedal hits a throttle stop. Someone at Gibbs installed magnetic spacers on the throttle stops inside the cars of Joey Logano and Tony Stewart. When the pedal was pressed down all the way, it was only engaged at around 85%, obviously done to try to mislead the dyno sheets. There's an old saying in racing, it ain't cheating until you get caught. And on this day, Joe Gibbs Racing had been caught, and NASCAR threw the book at them. Joey Logano and Tony Stewart would lose 150 driver points and be placed on probation until the end of the year. Joe Gibbs Racing would lose 150 owner points for both cars, and 7 crew members in total would be suspended indefinitely, 2 of whom were crew chiefs Jason Ratcliffe and Dave Rogers, who were both fined $50,000 as well. We now have just 10 races left in the season, and while it's a long shot, there's still one regular in the series that still has a chance at taking home the championship, but it'll be a tall task for Keselowski to make up any ground in the point standings tonight, as he'll have to start 37th. But Bowyer's lead is shrunk by 89 points in the last 6 races. so anything is possible. Starting on the pole tonight will be Cale Gale. Although this is only qualifying, this could be the shot in the arm that Cale needs. So far this season, he's made 11 starts, and only has 2 top 10s to show for it. Maybe tonight could be his night. Dario Franchitti made an impressive effort in qualifying, to end up starting on the outside of the front row. If you take into consideration his run at Watkins Glen and his qualifying efforts tonight, Franchitti has needed some good fortune thrown his way. After being injured in a crash back at Talladega this year, then Chip Ganassi Racing shutting down the number 40 Cup team that Franchitti drove in select Cup races due to a lack of sponsorship, Franchitti's future in NASCAR has been up in the air the last couple of months. There's no guarantee he'll run any races for the remainder of the year. Maybe tonight he can make a statement by having a strong run. As the race goes green, Cale gets the jump on Franchitti entering turn 1 and clears him off the corner. As the field settles down after the restart, Cale holds a 10 car length lead over Franchitti, still holding steady in second. As the race returns from commercial, we see the first caution of the night has come out, as Marcus Ambrose has an electrical issue. As we get a look at the replay, we see that Cale had to check up for Ambrose slowing off of turn 4. As he tries to regain speed down the front stretch, Franchitti passes him going into turn 1 and clears Gale before the caution lights come on and freeze the field. The race restarts and Franchitti jumps out ahead entering turn 1. As the field fans out a bit, we see that Joey Logano is running in 36th place, just a straightaway ahead of the leaders. After crashing earlier today and having to go to his backup car, Logano had made it up to 26th before the caution. However, the 20 team mistimed when the race was going back green. Joey ended up merging back onto the track just as the leaders were taking the green flag. While Joey's in a bit of a hole at the moment, he feels confident in his car. As he should. The backup they brought to the track is Joey's Kentucky car, that he won in earlier in the year. By lap 43, Brad Keselowski has made it up to 18th after starting 37th. The race would continue under green until lap 88, when Carl Edwards has a tire go down and collects the 9 of Elliott Sadler. Everybody would come in for fuel and tires, and Franchitti would maintain the lead off of pit road. As the field prepares for the restart, Edwards sits behind the wall as the 60 crew tries to repair his car. If you're Clint Bowyer or Brad Keselowski, you're certainly looking to capitalize on the guy that's sitting second in points, who's now going to take a massive points hit. The race goes back green and Franchitti would hold the lead for another 12 laps, until points leader Clint Bowyer passes him on the outside of turn 4. Bowyer would slowly increase his lead for the next 81 laps before a caution for the 52 of Brad Teague would bring out the third caution of the night and reset the field. As the field makes their pit stops, a pit road penalty for not having all 5 lug nuts on the left front wheel would effectively take away Kyle Busch's chance of a win. The race restarts on lap 194 as Bowyer jumps out in front of second place runner Greg Biffle. But sitting in third is Brad Keselowski. 13 laps after the restart, David Reagan would spin coming out of turn 4 and bring out the caution. The race would restart once more on lap 212, as new second place runner Keselowski sets his sights on the 2 of Bowyer. 9 laps later, the 7 of Mike Wallace and the 32 of Denny Hamlin would crash on the front stretch, right in front of Kyle Busch and Joey Logano. The lapped car of Wallace gets loose off the corner, and Hamlin, to his credit, tries to check up before getting clipped by Logano and sending them both spinning. The race would go back green with 25 laps remaining. Unlike the last restart, Brad doesn't let Bowyer get away off of turn 2 and stays near him, trying to force a mistake to get around him. Going into turn 1, he does just that.
Now watch the 2 car in the middle of turns 1 and 2.
Oh, man, that's a good save, actually.
Yeah. Got back to the gas hard, trying to get that run.
How much is that him looking in the mirror, seeing that 88?
Try as he might, Bowyer had nothing for the 88, as Brad continued to increase his lead lap after lap.
In the history of nationwide racing, 52 races has this race been won from a starting spot outside the top 20. Folks, that 88 car tonight started in 37th position. White flag for Brad Keselowski, and he will drive it into the corner. Keselowski will come down and take the checkered flag as a 2-time winner in 2008. What a job for the 24-year-old from Michigan.
6 times. 6 times this season that the regulars have dethroned the Cup guys. Triple the number of times as 2006, and twice as many as last year. As the Victory Lane celebration begins, it's starting to set in that this kid from Michigan is, well, he's our hope. He's taken the fight to the Cup guys, and has been the most consistent driver out of anyone else in the series in the last 9 races. and has also accumulated the most points out of anyone in that same span of races. Leaving tonight, Brad sits just 122 points behind Bowyer in the championship standings, and just like I stated earlier, anything can happen. The following week, the series would stop at Auto Club Speedway, where Kyle Busch would lead 144 out of 150 laps, en route to his 7th win of the season. Unfortunately for our new hero, a 33rd place finish would allow Clint Bowyer to extend his points lead to 204 points. The following race at Richmond would see Carl Edwards win, with Bowyer leading the most laps and Keselowski finishing 21st, the last car on the lead lap. Edwards moves back into second in points as Keselowski falls back to third, 279 points back from the lead. Kyle Busch would win again at Dover, with Keselowski finishing third and Edwards in fifth, as Bowyer would finish 10th. A little bit of ground would be made, but it's possibly too little too late. Kansas would be won by Hamlin, with Bowyer finishing 1.4 seconds behind in second. Edwards would finish 4th, with Keselowski finishing 6th. Kyle Busch wins again at Charlotte. Bowyer would finish 4th, Edwards 5th, and Keselowski 8th. With 4 races left, Bowyer still holds the points lead. Edwards is second, 196 points behind. And our guy Keselowski sits in third, 286 points back. Edwards would win the following race at Memphis, with Bowyer and Keselowski finishing 16th and 17th. Kyle Busch would go back to victory lane at Texas, with Edwards finishing second, cutting the points lead down to 91 points. Edwards would win the following 2 weeks at Phoenix and Homestead, and despite the late season charge by cousin Carl, Bowyer would win the championship by 21 points. Keselowski would end the year in third, 338 points back. Unlike the previous 2 seasons where the championship was won by complete domination, Bowyer only needed 1 win and an average finish of 8.3 to win it in 2008. The Owners' Championship will be won by the Joe Gibbs Racing number 20, winning 9 out of the season's 35 races. Despite the many highs the regulars experienced this season, I can't help but feel like I keep getting excited for nothing. Maybe Keselowski can build on his success next year, or maybe it's not meant to be. Unfortunately, with the way the ratings are looking and the economy sliding downhill, it's hard for me to be excited about anything. Well, I guess silly season could be pretty interesting. Tony Stewart's leaving Joe Gibbs. That's pretty newsworthy. I wonder who's going to be replacing him. So I spent all that time hyping up Joey Logano to be the next big thing, and we're not even going to get a full Nationwide Series season out of him? The Cup teams always take from the Nationwide Series. I think it'd be pretty damn hilarious if a Nationwide guy stole a race from the Cup guys for once. Anyway, as much as it pains me to watch a guy be so close and yet so far away, this is the halfway point in the series. We got 2 more parts left. Can't stop now. As always, until next time, I'm Jesse King, and I'll see y'all for 2009.